Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and it's Billboard Breakdown. You know, there was a time when an album bomb happened, it would at least slow down some existing traffic on the Hot 100. But since the Weeknd's new EP only had 6 songs, and it seems like they're already vanishing from the cultural conversation given how flat and turgid My Dear Melancholy was, outside of every single song from it breaking, we also had a pretty active week regardless. At least until the next album bomb from Cardi B, and I would put a fair amount of money on that being far more disruptive to the Hot 100 as a whole. But that's not saying we didn't have a bit of a shakeup, so let's start off with our top 10. And yes, I know, God's Plan by Drake is still at number 1, and by sense of pure inertia, I can actually remember the hook off it now, at the point where its spot at the top looks the shakiest, thanks to losing the top spot in on-demand streaming, the weakest sales and streaming margins to date, and wavering airplay. I would say this is bad news, because that means Meant to Be by BB Rexa featuring Florida Georgia Line could rise up from number 2, given how much it just rules radio. But really, without more streaming, it's just not going to get any higher. Drake will probably wind up replacing himself with Nice for What. But then we get the rise for Psycho by Post Malone featuring Ty Dolla $ign up to number 3. Sure, it got muscle back on streaming overall, but it had a good sales week and radio growth has been slow but steady. But now we got the big debut. Call Out My Name by The Weeknd smashes in at number 4. Now, I'll have a lot more to say about the song much later in the show, but it's got huge sales, a ton of streaming, and no radio at all. Seriously, if we got a guarantee that this will not last in the top 10 for much longer, it's this. And yet, it didn't seem to cripple Look Alive by Blockboy JB featuring Drake holding up at number 5 thanks to holding its own on streaming and good radio growth. Or In the Middle by Zedd, Maren Morrison Gray up to number 6 thanks to radio and shockingly strong sales. Nope. Some of that was because Perfect by H.E.R continued to bleed in all categories down to number 7, but likely more because Finesse by Bruno Mars and Cardi B just collapsed this week down to number 8, losing the top airplay spot and everything else just started draining with it. I mean, it might get a shot of life if the Cardi B album bomb really connects next week, but somehow, given how long this track's been around, kinda doubt it. Now, we also saw Freaky Friday by Lil Dicky featuring Chris Brown down to number 9. Not fast enough, but YouTube's just not dying with that song. But finally, a second new arrival in the top 10, Walk It, Talk It by Migos and Drake. Okay, seriously, I get why it's here because of the streaming, but it literally has nothing else. And it sounds like such a weak follow-up to Stir Fry. Can we not have this become a serious hit? It's not good at all. Now, granted, when I take a look at our losers and dropouts, we got a lot of falling away with precious little that could actually step up and replace it. Hell, it's in the latter category this week we lost No Limit by G-Eazy featuring A$AP Rocky and Cardi B, Love by Kendrick Lamar featuring Zacari, Wolves by Marshmello and Selena Gomez, Motorsport by Migos, Nicki Minaj and Cardi B, Gummo by 6ix9ine, and those are just the songs that are guaranteed to make the year-end list in 2018. I know, not a good sign. We also saw X's for Pick It Up by Famous Dex featuring A$AP Rocky, Betrayed by Lil Xan, I honestly thought that one might last a little longer, and Rubbing Off the Paint by YBN Namir. Again. Now, granted, I'm not really here about to complain about our losers. I mean, the best of them is Say Amen Saturday Night by Panic at the Disco off the debut to 86, and Lemon by NERD and Rihanna down to 48, and that's gonna make the year-end list regardless. But I find it hard to complain that I Fall Apart by Post Malone is down to 39, or All On Me by Devin Dawson continues down to 75, or NBA Young Boat by Lil Yachty featuring Youngboy Never Broke Again fade to 98, or how Youngboy Never Broke Again solo lost Outside Today down to 54. But the true loser this week, XXXTentacion, as Changes fell down to 58 and Moonlight dipped down to 71. Good. But here's the larger question. What's gonna replace these songs? I mean, sure, Broken Clocks by SZA came back to 82 because she finally released the video, but beyond that, the only 2 gains we got this week were both off of the debuts last week. Japan by Famous Dex rose up to 53, and No Roots by Alice Merton went up to 84. Okay, I'm genuinely optimistic. The song's really terrific, it's got good sales numbers, but it will have to keep that up along with the fledgling radio to have success, but hey, I can hope, right? But now for the much meatier part of this week, our new arrival. Starting off with number 100, Focus by H.E.R.
Can you focus on me? Baby, can you focus on me?
So we've got a lot of R&B to get through this week, and a nice change of pace, we're not going to start with The Weeknd. No, this is the breakthrough single from H.E.R, or H.E.R, I guess, I'm not sure. A California artist signed to RCA who has released a collection of EPs over the past couple of years, with this being her first breakthrough single. And it's a pretty damn good one. Sure, the blocky bass and the sparse trap skittering seems reminiscent of SZA, but the tightly multi-track cooing vocals almost remind me a little more of Ariana Grande, or at the very least an artist with that sort of restraint in that mold. And no, not just because they have songs with the same title, and this is way better than Ariana Grande's Focus anyway, especially against that fluttering backing melody that sounds really good. Now the lyrics, well, I wouldn't say I'm incredibly impressed for its longing for this guy. It can feel a tad bit underwritten, but I do like how she mentions how this guy does indeed provide for her, but that it doesn't really take the place of his actual time and attention. So as a whole, it's got a little bit more welcome gravitas and maturity, so yeah, this is pretty damn good. Great song, I want to hear more. Number 96, Crowd by 2 Chainz featuring YG and Offset.
I'm just tryna make my mama proud, yeah. I ain't tryna let my mama down. Yeah, mama ain't raised no hoe. One more time, yeah, my mama ain't raised no hoe. Yeah. Mama ain't raised no hoe. Yeah, mama ain't raised no hoe.
Okay, I was really hoping that after his lackluster performance on Cardi B's debut, Invasion of Privacy, YG would be able to redeem himself here, and yeah, his verse is better, but I'm still not all that impressed by either him or Offset telling stories about how all the trapping was to make their mamas proud, especially when so much of it involves hoes and shooting people. Now granted, I wasn't really crazy about all the auto-tune drizzled on Offset's voice anyway, the verse wasn't that good, or how he says he was wearing the same clothes as his mama. Interesting, but that's more because 2 Chainz just runs over the rest of the song here. He rides the low roiling synth and the wheedling rattles with the most ease and comfort. He sounds really good, even if he opens up his verse by saying TRU University, when TRU already means the real university. But honestly, this has got enough groove to be mostly tolerable, and to everybody's credit, the flexing does have better context than doing it for the family, even if so much of it is set against dismissing gold diggers, because of course it is. But you know what, I'm inclined to give it a pass for now. Just for now, though. Next up, number 94, Woman Amen by Dierks Bentley. So let me get this straight. Casey Musgraves drops Golden Hour, one of the most critically acclaimed pop country records of the year, trumpeted as a mainstream crossover breakthrough potentially, and yet country radio and country streaming is still set on having all the songs about women being sung by guys. I mean, nothing against Dierks Bentley here, or even this song. Sure, with the heavier percussion against the faster cloud of acoustic guitar and incredibly by-the-numbers melody, it sounds a lot like a slightly more organic High Valley song, and I don't know what the hell is going on with the multi-tracking on the bridge. The higher vocal line seems way too clean, but you know what? I like Dierks Bentley. He's a great singer, and sincerity in the songwriting is definitely credible, but still, I keep feeling there should be a little bit more of a firmer driving groove, or a little bit more roiling firepower beyond what it almost sounds like a tremolo guitar progression on the bridge. And here, my points about Casey Musgraves, they stand. She should be having this spot, not Dierks Bentley. He can easily get back on the chart later. I mean, this is decent, but really, country radio, you can do better. Number 92, Take Back Home Girl by Chris Lane featuring Tori Kelly.
Where the wild things grow. You'll wake up in pajamas, not a trace of makeup on you. You're a helper fix it, having breakfast with my mama. You're a take back home, home, home girl. Home, home, home girl. Take back home, home, home girl. Home, home, home girl.
Okay, this is not what I meant when I said getting more women in country. You actually like those artists who would actually be country singers, not leftovers from burning out in pop. Now granted, I'd be hard-pressed to call anything Chris Lane has done all that country either, so I'm not all that surprised he teamed up with Tori Kelly for this, especially with the flattened guitar lead I could swear was pulled straight from a bad early 2000s R&B song, including the incredibly stiff percussion and synthetic vocal layering. Well, what I couldn't help but find kind of amusing was that for as much as Tori Kelly has a reputation for over-singing, singing. Any of her belting on the song was confined midway to the back of the mix, so not to get in the way of Chris Lane's pseudo-rap delivery with little actual passion or intensity. Go figure. Now, granted, this is a song all about Tori Kelly being that take-back-home girl. Literally, they hammered that phrase into the ground by the first hook, but beyond a bunch of bro-country detailed cliches, there's just nothing else to really hold on to. It's just kind of flavorless and forgettable across the board, only distinctive for guitar tones that were done better a good 15 years ago. So, yeah, not really all that good. Next, number 89, OKRA by Tyler, the Creator.
Friends, where they go? I stick to the plan, that's the goal. Fuck these niggas, man, that's for sure.
So I'll admit, when I saw this song show up, I was a little bit surprised. I'm still coming around to the possibility that Tyler, the Creator, can actually get hits on the Hot 100 now, maybe through his embrace of more incredibly slick R&B textures, so I figured this would be another step in that lane, and boy, I was wrong. Yeah, this is the sort of bassy, swamped out rumble with Tyler flexing and flowing his ass off, with the only real melody coming on the shrill ascending synths and what sounds like rushes of ominous strings on the hook, and I really like those. It sounds fantastic. And while I'd struggle to put this among his most textured and potent songs off of Flower Boy, it's not I Ain't Got Time, but for a throwaway song, Tyler manages to cram in the sort of hyper-detailed flexing as a genuine sense of menace and danger, and makes rhyming about seeking out guys for sex as natural as girls, or anything you hear from someone like Brockhampton. So yeah, it's a pretty damn great and solid song. Not quite the height of his best, but definitely something I can get behind in the Hot 100, even if I sadly don't have expectations it'll stick around, but hey, I can hope, right? Number 78, Booed Up by Ella Mai.
Boot up, and my heart goes bada. Boot up, it just won't stop. It go bada. Boot up, and my heart goes bada. Boot up, it just won't stop. It go.
So now we've got our second new R&B singer. This one from the UK was briefly on the X Factor before blowing up off of Instagram and SoundCloud and getting signed to DJ Mustard's personal label. And then after touring with Kalani, she dropped an EP over a year ago with this DJ Mustard produced single finally landing on the Hot 100. And look, I'm not denying it's got a certain smooth charm in the piano playing off the fizzy trap vibe and the bright synth flourishes, but it seems like Ella Mai plays the love-struck yearning of the song a little bit too cold and distant to really sell it for me, especially given how straightforward a lot of the writing is. It's certainly passable, sure, and the spoken word outro does help sell that emotional balance she might be going for, but as such it falls into a really weird emotional spot for me, not really clicking as well as I'd like it to. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not really all that good, and honestly, not all that memorable either. Number 52, Privilege by The Weeknd.
I got too bad. Lose away, way, I got too bad to take the lose away.
Okay, so we got 6 Weeknd songs to get through, and since I already reviewed the EP, I'm gonna try to keep this pretty brief. Now, this is the closing song off the album, full of murky, grainy texture as he tries to keep a smile on as he submerges back into the empty sex and the drug abuse, especially as he doesn't want to hear anything more about this ex. And you know, for the verse and the pre-chorus, I had hopes this would work for me, but then we get these dank layers deepening his voice even as the mix drowns out any brighter elements, especially with such minimalist percussion, and none of it builds to any sort of real payoff beyond a muffled lo-fi piano ending that comes way too soon. As an album closer, it was the natural but frustrating ending, but on its own, just kind of a throwaway, and an underwhelming one at that. Next, number 45, Medicine by Queen Naija.
Give another guy everything that belongs to you. I'ma call up Brian, I'ma FaceTime Ryan, I'ma text Lorenzo, and I'ma leave you crying. Don't get it twisted, I can play this game too. How would you like it if I did the same to you, yeah?
And now we've got our third new R&B star, and this one comes from YouTube of all places. Yeah, in between vlogs that have gone crazy viral over the past year, she's also decided to release this song, and let's get the obvious out of the way, it's biting SZA style really hard. From the meandering melodic flow to the slightly unstable low-end trap groove to the slightly oily backing vocals there too. She brings just a little bit less of an edge to her delivery, which might make her a tad bit more accessible than SZA, but she also doesn't have the pipes or the raw presence that SZA does, particularly evident in a lot of her belting, which I didn't really buy into. And when you consider this a song like this is all about giving a guy a taste of his own medicine by cheating and then seeking revenge, well, see, that's the thing. SZA had songs where she's placed in uncomfortable emotional situations analogous to this, but it doesn't come across as nearly as blunt or vindictive as it does here, and delivery doesn't quite sell me on any subtlety like SZA could, or even bring the raw intensity of, say, a K. Michelle track. As it is, I don't know, it's not bad, but I'm not won over. At least not yet. Number 43, Hurt You by The Weeknd featuring Gesaffelstein. Look, there's a fair bit to like about the song. The popping groove, the swells of synths, the darker layering around The Weeknd's crooning as he warns her to stay away because they're gonna have sex if she shows up, but nearly all the good elements, they come from other songs. The beat is sampled from both The Weeknd's Daft Punk collaborations, his flow is interpolated from Pray For Me, and all Gesaffelstein, all he adds are these goddamn air horn synths on the outro. I mean, it's blatant recycling from better songs, and frankly, The Weeknd, he can do better. I mean, certainly better than number 35, I Was Never There by The Weeknd featuring Gesaffelstein.
It won't matter when it's shine, shine, shine. It won't matter, it won't matter.
Yeah, might as well put those blaring whistles on those air horns right at the very front of the damn mix before letting the rest curdle into a dank, reverb-drenched darkness that sets all the mood. But really, all The Weeknd is doing here anyway is wallowing in mindless sex and pointing a finger at his ex saying it's all her fault he's doing this. Now, frankly, the only thing that saves the song is the beat switch to the major keys on the bridge that actually picks up some glistening presence in a lot of those keyboards before utterly squandering any sort of crescendo. I mean, it's not the worst song on this EP, but man, it had potential, and man, it's close to it. Number 27, Wasted Time by The Weeknd. Now we got a straight up sex jam with the rickety percussion courtesy of Skrillex as The Weeknd comes back to an old relationship and tries to inquire about her current status by playing on some old chemistry. And you know, if the groove was more consistent, I would probably appreciate this a little more, but it fits into the general clumsiness of the entire song. From the awkward structuring of the line, "You were equestrian," to those scratchy pitch-shifted vocals on the bridge, or how his dick is still an option, or how he at least has some self-awareness how it's not really gonna work. Really, it's that emotional undercurrent that somewhat holds this together, but even then, only barely. Number 26, Try Me by The Weeknd.
Once you put your pride aside, you can know to find me, find me, find me, find me. You're the best I ever had, baby girl, remind me, remind me. Let me know if it's on, you know where to find me. Having thoughts you never had.
Ah yes, the worst song on the EP. And yes, it's because of those cheap spurts of thin gurgling synth that run through entirely too much of the song, although the fact that it's about The Weeknd trying and mostly failing to come between Selena Gomez and Justin Bieber, that certainly doesn't help. And seriously, if you're stuck playing second fiddle to Justin freaking Bieber, especially considering how damn hard you're trying with the rumbling Mike Will made it beat and increasingly ugly synth choices and a bridge that utterly runs out of lyrical ideas before dissolving to a mass of pitch shifting, yeah, no, not good. Pass. Number 16, Be Careful by Cardi B.
I want you to live your life, of course, but I hope you get what you're dying for. Be careful with me. Do you know what you're doing? Whose feelings that you hurting and bruising? You gon' gain the whole world, but is it worth the girl that you losing? Be careful with me.
Okay, look, when I talked about this song in the Cardi B review of Invasion of Privacy, I tried to give it a fair pass. It's one of the few moments that tries to give her some more dimension to play with, where she cusses out some unnamed guy, Offset, sorry, for being unfaithful, and does some work to actually dig deeper into the insecurities that come when you get cheated on, which she hates because that she even has these insecurities because it's not rooted in her mind, but his inconsistencies. But for as promising as that can be, look, I'm sorry, the production is utterly flat with a really tepid sample against the synth melody, and the hook might somehow be worse. Trying for a more melodic flow just feels really clumsy and limp. It doesn't work from her. And if the hook is intended as some form of warning to this guy to be careful, no, it doesn't work. There's no ominous presence or danger or mood that fits the flow from the verses. And when you consider how invested that she's trying to sell it, it just doesn't connect. I mean, it's not precisely bad. Again, there are signs of more dimension that I appreciate, but it's definitely a lesser cut, a first real dud of a single, and knowing this will probably wind up being a hit instead of better songs, yeah, sorry Cardi B, not good. And finally, number 4, Call Out My Name by The Weeknd. And finally, The Weeknd unleashes his big breakup ballad about Selena Gomez and no, I can't do it. I just can't. I'm sorry. It's not denying that the song has pomp and bombast. Hell, it probably has more than earned it, the song that is blatantly recycling. But when you consider the leaden synth leads and the bass and the utter refusal to hit harder beyond the blown out vocals leading into the final hook, it feels like this should hit way harder, have way more bombast and presence than it does, instead of feeling like a dark, buzzy facsimile of a decidedly worse song. And yet, even with all that, hell, at least he's trying more often here, so I'd probably say this winds up being one of the better songs on the EP. But as I said in the review, and I'll say it again, this EP, My Dear Melancholy, it's a lane The Weeknd has thoroughly dredged before, and when he's not recycling, and when it's not so blatant, that's still not a good sign. But as a whole, look, this week was not bad, but I'm not exactly crazy about it either. The best, for me, it's going to OKRA by Tyler, the Creator. See, The Weeknd, that's how you do add some tension on the hook. With honorable mention going to Focus by H.E.R. But the worst, yeah, see, the only outright dud for me is Try Me by The Weeknd, so it's getting worse the week. But dishonorable mention, honestly, Take Back Home Girl by Chris Lane and Tori Kelly gets that for not just barely being a country song, but also as someone who actually likes Fix a lot more than he probably should. I like to think that both artists are capable of better than this song, but none of that will really matter because next week we've got an avalanche of Cardi B, so stay tuned for that. But until that next time, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.